Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Johns Hopkins School of Education, Doctor of Education virtual webinar. My name is Sion John. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Also here with me, I have my colleague from the Office of Admissions, and she will introduce herself.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tanya McMillan. I am an admissions coordinator here at the School of Education. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Also presenting today, we have a student speaker from the EdD program, actually and a graduate, Dr. Alton McCallum, and faculty member of the Doctor of Education program, Dr. Camille Bryant. And before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. First, today's webinar is being recorded. We will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. Also, please take a second to see if your mic is on mute and video is off right now. Please have your mic on mute and video off at all times during the presentation. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please type your question in the chat box and we will answer your questions. Next, I would like to share the agenda for today's presentation. We will kick off the presentation sharing overview of the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Then Dr. Bryant will go over details of the Doctor of Education program. We also have a student speaker from the EdD program, and he will talk about his journey here at SOE. And lastly, we'll cover admissions requirements and financial aid and leave the floor open for questions at the end. And to start, we are one of 9 schools at Johns Hopkins University. We began offering college courses for teachers in 1909 and then became our own school in 2007. We are proud to share that the Johns Hopkins School of Education is consistently ranked one of the top schools in education by the U.S. News and World Report. For school enrollment, we have approximately 1,741 students and offer 25 graduate programs, which includes doctoral, master's, and graduate certificate programs. And we also have a strong network of over 24,000 SOE alums. And for faculty introduction, Dr. Camille Bryant is an associate professor at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Dr. Bryant teaches research methods courses across a variety of program areas, and her research interests focus on the use of advanced approaches to examine the impact of policy implementation on student outcomes. Dr. Bryant aims to better understand how contextual variables influence teachers' implementation of policies and their combined effects on student outcomes. She has published and presented research in the areas of survey research, policy implementation, and spatial reasoning, and has experience managing federally funded research studies. At this time, I'm going to hand the floor over to Dr. Bryant. Dr. Bryant will be presenting on the Doctor of Education program.
So thank you again for the introduction. So I'd like to first just talk about the vision and the mission of the EdD program within the School of Education. So here you see both of those, and the vision is for our students to engage in and impact complex educational problems across the globe. So we aim to prepare educational practitioners to think critically about problems within their educational environments through deep investigation and through a deep understanding and insights that will lead to positive and sustained changes within their educational contexts. Accordingly, our mission is that exceptional educational practitioners engage with an internationally renowned faculty to cultivate and practice curiosity, critical discourse, and perspective taking in a unique and rigorous course of study, using the lenses of social justice, systems thinking, appropriate research methods, and empirical inquiry. So given our mission and our vision, the Doctor of Education degree is ideal for experienced practitioners who seek to analyze and critique educational practice and research from a social justice and systems perspective. So we want our graduates to be a critical consumer of research. This program is also ideal for practitioners who seek to apply relevant methodologies to address critical challenges in education, to integrate research and practice-based knowledge to develop research-informed decisions and opinions about educational experiences, processes, policies, and institutions, as well as those who seek to communicate effectively to diverse audiences about those experiences, processes, policies, and institutions. So in the next few slides, I'll talk about some of the nuts and bolts of the program in terms of coursework, areas of interest, program features, and program expectations. So our program requires a minimum of 90 graduate credits beyond the bachelor's degree. The master's degree is required for admission into our program, and that's typically about 30 to 36 credits. Up to 36 credits will be transferred automatically from the master's program with potential for 6 additional credit hours. And then a minimum of 48 credits must be completed at JHU. The fall 2023 areas of interest include entrepreneurial leadership and education, mind, brain, and teaching, instructional design and online teaching and learning, and urban leadership. And I will say that for anyone who has received a mind, brain, and teaching certificate, they must select a different specialization for the EdD program. Here I want to talk about some of our program features. So as a student, you will engage in rigorous, relevant, and systemic and social justice perspectives. You will communicate research and modalities other than scholarly writing. This is a 4-year program that allows you to focus on process. This is also an online asynchronous program, so you'll engage in asynchronous instruction with synchronous support. And then the doctoral dossier is embedded within coursework. In terms of coursework, you will engage in 4 main areas. You'll take 15 credits in Foundations of Education courses, 9 credit hours in applied research, 12 hours in doctoral dossier research, and then 18 credit hours in your areas of interest and your elective courses. There are 3 transition points within the EdD program. The first is the comprehensive exam. This is an oral exam following year 2 of the program, and the focus is on core courses, which include the Foundation of Education courses and the applied research courses. The next transition point is the dossier proposal, which is defended orally to a committee of faculty. And then your final transition point is your final dossier defense, which is also defended orally to a committee of faculty. So given the rigorous nature of the program, it's important to know that there are support structures in place for students. So these, oh, sorry, I missed a slide. I want to talk about the doctoral dossier. This is really important. This is the final and most significant requirement for the EdD degree. It's a culmination of independently completed, but closely interrelated projects. And so as a part of your study, you will first explore a problem deeply through an empirical study to understand those factors that are associated with your problem, and then complete an applied project that is connected to those empirical findings. The projects for the dossier are embedded within coursework, and they're distributed across your 4 years in the program. The doctoral dossier also focuses on a problem of practice within the context of your professional practice. And then finally, there's this potential for significant change within your context of professional practice, as well as implications for policy. So by being able to understand a problem deeply and to think about that and understand those contributing factors and develop an applied project, there really is this opportunity to be a change agent within your professional practice. So next, I want to talk about the support structures within the EdD program. So first is the online orientation. This is an orientation that you will complete when you're admitted into the program and have let us know that you are planning to matriculate in the fall. And so you complete an online orientation, which I'll talk about in detail later. There's also the face-to-face orientation, yearly residency. And then there's the faculty cohort lead, as well as program mentors, peer mentoring, group advising, and instructors. You also have support through the writing clinic, which offers writing support to students. There are also library webinars, and then finally online resources through our program and our cohort sites. So I want to talk a little bit about the mandatory online orientation. This opens for students in May prior to matriculating in the fall. And the first 2 sections must be completed before attending the face-to-face orientation residency in July. So the first section focuses on technology tools, and so you are introduced to the technology that's used in our program. The second section focuses on research methods, and this is a 7-week training with session quizzes and discussion posts that allow you to have an introduction to some of the methods that you will use as a student in our program. The third section focuses on library and how to navigate the library resources. The fourth section focuses on city training, which is necessary for you to conduct research within the institution. Section 5 focuses on social justice. And then section 6 is the orientation residency, which you will attend hopefully face-to-face in 2023 with members of your cohort. And then after completing that orientation residency, you will then complete section 7, which is the EdD course tour. And then finally, you'll complete the SOE new student orientation. So I want to talk a little bit about orientation residency. This is historically a face-to-face orientation. We've had to hold it online, of course, because of COVID over the last few years, but hopefully that will change in 2023. This occurs during late July, and it's typically 2 to 3 days. And for those students who are not able to attend face-to-face, it can be completed electronically. During that time, we also host residency. And this is a time each year where students who are in their 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year of the program are come together and engage in learning and social activities. And all of these activities, the orientation as well as residency, allow for specific learning to jumpstart your work each year. And it also allows you to have those face-to-face interactions with faculty and other students. And it's really an exciting time for learning and social engagement for our students. Finally, I wanted to talk about some of the past student studies in our program, and you'll see that there's a huge range in the types of research that students engage in our program, which I think speaks to just the students that we have and the impact that they're able to make across so many contexts and different areas of study. So here I'll just talk about a few. A student conducted research related to HIV and AIDS, and he focused on young adults who were infected with the virus, who are non-adherent to their medication. Another student looked at entrepreneurship in Escribo, an edtech company in Brazil. Still, another one looked at advisement models to support community college student enrollment and completion. Another student did a qualitative exploration of pedagogical constructs in Montessori schools. So thank you so much for listening to aspects about our EdD program, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Alton McCollum.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Alton McCollum. I first want to kind of give you my context. I came to the program from the mental health field. I'm a licensed professional counselor within the state of Texas, with private practice and a group practice within the state. So coming to the program, my area of interest was that anything to kind of do with the mind, brain, and teaching. One of the things that set the Johns Hopkins program apart is their emphasis from the very beginning, in contrast to other programs, on the problem of practice you come into the field with, or into the program with. And from the very first moment of meeting faculty and others, we began to focus on that particular area and that topic, which for me was emergency response wellness. So from the very, very beginning, it was focused on helping me solve the problem of practice in the real world. And that was one of the great things that attracted me to the program and sustained my interest and my involvement and my excitement through the program. My problem of practice, as I stated, was emergency response wellness. And as I completed it, it shifted a few times throughout the program, but it was a clinical supervision of spiritually integrated wellness. I did a dissertation, and mine was not typical. Mine was shifted a little bit to create a framework of supervision instead of being able to actually implement it and run things through it. It was a theory development using grounded theory. So the flexibility within the program to meet what's really needed for you and your problem of practice was instrumental to not only to my success in the program, but how I can affect my community and beyond. And again, reasons for choosing JHU was focus on the social justice and equity. That's a big component as we think about social discriminants of health and other things like that. But in the mental health space, really being able to bring in other cultures and other things that haven't typically been there for persons of color. And then obviously with JSU, the rigor in educational and clinical record. Anywhere you mention the name of Johns Hopkins, it's already thought in the health field, wow, they know what they're talking about. They know how to produce clinicians and those that are really well trained and understand research. Some of the highlights of the program is, going through this doctorate program, it gave me a deeper understanding of the complicated history. And sometimes when we think about the history of mental health or other aspects of our culture, we're not thinking out how the foundation is still affecting everything through this present day. So the class structure, the development from semester to semester laid a foundation, but allowed us to go deeper and deeper. And for me, I've been asked the question, why didn't you go into counselor education, doctorate or something like that? But for me, this program was deeper and better for this because it allows me to work in an interdisciplinary field, understand education to the depth and not just to one particular field. And then for those that are, hopefully you're joining the program and really interest, I'll tell you to trust the process. We definitely come out better researchers. We gain that greater literacy and you know, obviously it would empower you for your future. But some of the things that you would think in evaluating the programs, I would ask you to look at the researchers, the faculty members, their research, their things that they've actually accomplished, but also the students. And the last slide kind of showed that. So I'll just reiterate that you have people that are before you that were successful, been in the program and successful, and then as they go and they change their community and world, kind of evaluating that and seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. McCollum, and also Dr. Bryant. Now we're going to continue on with application requirements for the program. Applicants must submit a completed application, which can be found on our website. Keep in mind there is an $80 application fee. Next, you'll need an updated resume highlighting your educational and professional background. Also, a personal statement, which should not exceed more than 750 words, describing a problem of practice relevant to your current context of professional practice. Be sure to align your problem of practice with one of the areas of interest as well. Additionally, you should submit 2 letters of recommendation. These letters should include at least the following: a professor you've worked with in your master's program who can speak on your competency to conduct rigorous scholarly work, and also a professional recommender who can attest to your qualifications to pursue a doctorate degree. And this recommender would also support your problem of practice. Keep in mind, you are also able to substitute a professional reference should you not be able to obtain an academic one, for instance, if you've been out of school for quite some time. One additional note is to make sure one of your professional recommenders is your executive sponsor. This person should be someone who will be an asset in helping you gain access to data and/or participants related to your problem of practice. If you are self-employed, your executive sponsor might be a person of authority with the agency you would like to work with to collect your related data to earning your doctorate degree. Applicants are required to identify and submit the name of an executive sponsor within the application form as well. Also, the GRE is not a requirement for admissions consideration to the EdD program. It is optional for an applicant to submit a GRE test score as part of the application. However, submitting a GRE test score is an opportunity for you to present additional evidence of the quantitative and verbal skills required for doctoral level study. Also, we require all official transcripts, including institutions you may have taken courses at but did not receive a degree. Again, this should be from all post-secondary institutions that you have attended. Lastly, all applicants will be asked to complete a virtual interview upon submitting their application. And also, Dr. Bryant, we do receive a good amount of questions relating to the problem of practice and executive sponsor. In addition to what I just shared, please feel free to share any additional information on the problem of practice and executive sponsor that may be helpful.
Sure, thanks. So in terms of the executive sponsor, you want to think of this person as someone who may be a gatekeeper within your professional practice, someone who has insight about your context and can help you navigate that research process and can help point you in the right direction in terms of who to talk to or what things you may need to keep in mind as you're wanting to conduct rigorous research within your organization. So those are some things to kind of keep in mind, that contact person who's going to be a gatekeeper and can help you navigate your research within your context. In terms of your problem of practice, you want to think about a problem within your educational institution that is that you're passionate about, or something that you may experience or see over and over and over again as you've been in that institution, something that hasn't been resolved, maybe through repeated attempts. And so think about problems like that you want to explore and address within your doctoral studies. I do want to also just emphasize that you are, in your application and throughout your study, you really want to focus on the problem. A lot of times students are so solution oriented, which I think we're just kind of trained to be that way in education. We see a problem and we want to fix it. And so really making sure that within your application, you are clearly articulating what the problem is. What has that looked like within your context? What do you think are some reasons for why that problem may exist, and keeping the focus there, because that's really what you are going to explore and navigate and try to address through your journey in our program.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. The EdD application is now open for fall 2023 admissions. You'll be able to find the application on the school's website. The application deadline is January 18, 2023. Any supporting materials, for example, your official transcripts, letters of recommendation, and the virtual interview must be completed by January 18. Applications will be reviewed from February to mid-March. And finally, admissions decisions will be released in mid-March, and those decisions will be sent to all of the candidates with completed applications by mid-March of 2023. For international students, there are a few additional steps that you'll need to take in order to complete the application process. You must submit a TOEFL or IELTS score that would demonstrate English proficiency. If your degree was completed outside of the US, you will also need to complete a course-by-course credential evaluation. Additional information on these processes can be found on our website as well. The tuition for the next academic school year will be $17.20 per credit. Each course in the EdD program is 3 credits. The current tuition per 3-credit course is $5,160. Please keep in mind this excludes textbooks, course materials, graduation fees, and registration fees. Please note additional fees apply and are charged separately from tuition. We encourage you to thoroughly review our tuition and fees page on our website for the most up-to-date information about tuition and fees, so that you can understand the complete picture of the costs associated with becoming a student here at the School of Education. If you're interested in applying for financial aid, we strongly encourage you to apply for federal financial aid when you start your application by filling out a FAFSA form. The EdD program also offers scholarships that range approximately from $500 to $2,000 per semester. Students do not need to apply for these scholarships. These EdD partial scholarships are merit-based and are awarded to select students by the EdD Admissions Committee. And lastly, School of Education also offers a limited number of partial need-based scholarships each year as well. The Schools of Education's endowed scholarship awards range from $500 to $1,500 per semester and are applied to the tuition expenses beginning in the fall semester. To see if you qualify to apply for the endowed scholarship, please visit the Grants and Scholarship page on our school's website. You'll find contact information for the Office of Financial Aid and details on loans and scholarships that are available there as well. Thank you for attending our webinar today. At this time, we'd like to open the floor for questions. Please type your questions in the chat box. And if there are questions that are not answered by the time our webinar completes at 4 p.m., please reach out to the admissions or EdD program office, and that contact information will be shared in the last slide as well.
All right, thank you, Tanya. The first question we have is, does my executive sponsor need to have a doctorate degree?
I'll answer that. The answer is no. They do not need a doctorate degree. They, again, most likely they'll have a master's just because of their position within your institution. And again, just think about that gatekeeper and someone who can help navigate your research.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. The next question we have is, what if I've recently started a new job who does not have much experience with me? Should I submit another professional reference?
Yeah, so I think that's fine to provide another professional reference who knows the work that you're doing, who can speak to your capabilities to conduct rigorous research and to engage in an academically challenging environment.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. The next question is, how flexible is the program? For example, the plans on your website show 2 courses per semester. Is it possible to take one at a time?
It is possible. We do have extended programs for students who want to do just that. Who want to take one program at a time, and you'll work that out with your cohort lead when you are admitted and matriculate into the program.
The next question is, I'm hoping to use my doctoral degree to end up in higher education as a professor. Is this degree not geared towards academics with this goal in mind?
So the EdD allows you to do both. So some of our graduates do go on to become college professors. Some continue on in their professional practice that they started in and maybe continue to move up in the ranks and take on more leadership roles. So an EdD does allow you to do both. What's nice is that because this is oriented towards the practitioner, you will have that lens to offer to a position as a faculty member within a university that some PhD students may not have, because their work is much more theoretical.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. The next question is, I'm interested in corporate L&D. How can JHU help me?
I think, again, our program is designed for the practitioner. And so if you're wanting to make real-time educational change and kind of disrupt systems within organizations, and I think this is a program that lends itself to individuals who want to do that. And the other thing is that our students, as you saw with the types of research that students conduct, it really does span a wide variety of topics and areas, and students work in many different types of contexts. And so I think that lends itself to maybe the work that you want to do.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. The next one is there a GPA requirement for admission?
I think the admissions office may want to answer that one.
Mm-hmm. So the admission requirement for GPA is a 3.0. The next question we have is, I'm a working professional, and if I apply, I am most likely going to continue working in my current profession? Are courses typically held in the evening, US Eastern Time?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the content of our courses is provided asynchronously. So we have sessions that open typically every Sunday. Students engage in that coursework on their own time. And, of course, there are due dates for assignments and things of that nature. There are synchronous components, and those are typically held maybe 2 or 3 times a semester by the instructor. And that's really an opportunity for the instructor to maybe talk about a major assignment for the course, to maybe answer questions that students may have about assignments. And so those are also recorded for students who can't attend. And because we know that students are coming from across the globe, we generally hold 2 sync sessions, one in the evening and one in the morning, so that students in different time zones can hopefully attend. But again, your primary coursework is all provided asynchronously.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. The next one we have is, I'm going to be moving in summer 2023 internationally due to a military move. Is it impractical to take part in this program while trying to find a new site for my problem of practice?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So because you are examining this problem of practice within your context, I would say that it may be worth, you have to think about a couple of things. If your current context will allow you to still conduct research, if there's a means to do that, then the move won't have as much of an impact as it would if you weren't able to conduct research. If that is the case, if you're not able to conduct research in your current institution, then I would encourage you to maybe wait, get to know your current context, and then apply to the program where you can engage fully within that environment through your studies.
The next question is, Dr. Bryant, what happens if your executive sponsor resigns mid-program?
So I would, hopefully there's someone else who can step in and kind of fill in the gap for you. It's not a huge detriment to your program process, but I would try to find someone who can fill that person's place as you complete your program studies.
The next question is, can classes be taken outside of SOE?
Typically, we don't allow students to take classes outside of our EdD program. However, there have been instances where a student may want to take another statistics course, maybe a higher level statistics course, because of the nature of their research, and those things have been granted for students to do. So it's not typical, but it's also not impossible.
The next question is, what are your recommendations regarding making sure that your problem of practice is aligned with faculty interest?
That's a good question. So you can always take a look at our SOE EdD site and look at the faculty who teach in our program to get a sense of the research interests that we all have. And the School of Ed is pretty big in my opinion, and so there may be faculty outside of the EdD program who whose work may align with your own research interests. And so they may be a person who you may want to connect with if you're admitted into the program. But I would just start with looking online at our website and looking at faculty.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. Is there a company-wide reorganization that interferes with your research? How does that work?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
The question is, it's from Michelle. It says, is there a company-wide reorganization that interferes with your research? How does that work? And I have a feeling the student, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr. Bryan. Mhm.
Yeah, that's something you have to be aware of, because if you're wanting to conduct research within this organization, and there's some reorganization which may disrupt the work that you're doing, then that's something to be aware of. So you may want to think about looking maybe outside of your context. For example, if you're maybe looking at a similar school within your district, if you're an educator within a school that's not going through that reorganization process, but has kind of the same issues, the same population, et cetera, that your school has, then maybe there's an opportunity to conduct some research in that within that context. Also, this is, again, your executive sponsor can maybe help you kind of navigate all of that, because sometimes principals leave and a new one comes in, and they may not be as enthusiastic about the work that you're doing, or there's just new leadership that's affecting your work. And so the executive sponsor really can help you navigate those changes as well.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. And the next question from Sarah is, how many hours per week do you recommend that students set aside to work on each class?
So I would think of our program as a part-time job. So students typically spend about 15 to 20 hours outside of their own professional lives and personal lives to work on their schoolwork.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. The next question from Brittany, would there be any potential challenges for me since this is a change in specialty? I obtained a master's degree in counseling psychology.
So that wouldn't be a problem. The main thing is that we're looking for individuals who are passionate about addressing and doing research around this problem of practice within their context. So even if we have students who are have had a business background and are now maybe in the education sector, or maybe they're not even in the education sector, but they want to explore an educational problem and look at it from an educational lens. And so I think as long as you are thinking about your research and what you want to do and the problem of practice that you're exploring from that in that way, then having a psychology background is perfectly fine.
Next question we have from Josh is, how many courses per semester do we take to complete in 4 years?
So you typically take 2 courses per semester.
Okay, so next question is, how would someone who's retired conduct research on a selected topic?
So that's a good question. I think the main thing to think about is there a context that you are able to access and conduct research in? I think that's really the main thing you want to think about. Sometimes even some of our students are able to maybe not work physically within a context, but they're still able to conduct research within a context because they're looking at maybe publicly public use data that gives them still that opportunity to explore a problem deeply without having to kind of engage, have that kind of engagement within that institution. So that may be something that you are able to do, but eventually we do want you to be able to make educational change, whatever that looks like through an applied project. And so it's important to have contacts within an organization that you're wanting to hopefully change.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. Another really good question we received is it possible to take more than 2 courses each semester?
That's a good question. You would have to talk to the current program director who would you would petition, and they would potentially give you permission to take more than 2 courses.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant, for joining us today, and for Dr. McCollum. We appreciate all the attendees that have joined as well. You'll see our contact information up here on this last slide for admissions for myself, Tanya McMillan, and for Raven Minervino in the EdD program office. So if you have any additional questions concerning anything discussed today or anything that comes up, please feel free to email us. Thank you, everyone, again for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.